to incorporate the views generated through public participation. And following the passage of the bill, the country witnessed widespread expression of dissatisfaction with the bill as passed, regrettably resulting in the loss of life, destruction of property, and disintegration of constitutional institutions. On my own behalf, and on behalf of these members and many other Kenyans, I send my condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones in this very unfortunate manner. Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024, and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the
OWUSU. So this is Pan-African Television. This is the newspaper review segment here on your #1 station. Let me quickly take you through the topics we've selected for today's conversation. Kenya's president withdraws tax plan after deadly protests. Daily Graphic. Inflation expected to decline to 21.9% in June 2024. Business analyst. Let's uphold rule of law. Chief Justice Tokono. NPP VIP race, Baumia picks Napo Daily Guide newspaper. I've been joined in the studios by Mr. Philip London. Good morning, sir. Mr. Kwesi Pratt, good morning. And Professor Hamza Adam. You are aspiring, or you are the MP for...
I'm the MP.
Kubungu.
In the PC as well.
Yes, okay. So when he introduces the PC. All right, so good morning to you, Prof.
Good morning.
And welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very kindly. Right. So let's go to Kenya. I'm sure you watched a little bit of... President Ruto's speech. What do you make of it?
Good morning to Uncle Pratt. It's always a pleasure to be under your mentorship. And good morning, my uncle. And good morning to all the good people of
So you greet me.
Good morning, Kwan. I think I started with you. So it is very sad that we have this situation happening in Kenya. One of the countries that we are very proud of as Africans. We have been following the development in Kenya, and Kenya seems to be doing so well. It's one of the biggest economies we have in Africa, and to find themselves in this situation is not too good at all. The president has decided to change his decision, has decided to rescind his decision under the deadly protest. For me, why did we have to get to that point? He's one of the presidents that, for me, I see to be very innovative. I followed his recent visit to the White House and the process. At the time he was I was in the US, and the kind of things that he's doing. Somebody being an environmental person, I admire the kind of inventions he has brought to Kenya. In Kenya, for example, when you buy an item from supermarket, you don't get plastic. It's purely paper. Which is very good so far as fighting climate issues are concerned. So it is a country, I've been there once. I actually have a ticket to go to Kenya on coming Saturday, but that can happen because as a result of this development there. And so some of my colleagues are still there. I'm not sure whether by today they are back or not. So for me, I think that the president has been giving an indication that the masses matter, because democracy is about the people.
Absolutely.
It's for the people, and when you are ruling people and they say the majority or the good majority say they don't want it, you have to listen to them, because you didn't ascend to the throne by military. You went through democracy. The very people who elected you into power said they don't want you to be there, or they don't want you to do ABCD. You have to listen to them. And so I want to congratulate the youth who stood for the country, who put their life in the line to fight to ensure that the killer tax has been suspended by the president. And I think it's something that we have to learn as a country. This is what we expect of Ghanaians. I don't know why we are so timid as Ghanaians, because we have had worse situations in Ghana, yet we have allowed these things to pass. We have always played some lip service. Look at the e-levy tax, for example, which is still fresh in mind. We were expected to have done something similar to stand by the country and by the people to ensure that we don't accept that. Taxes in this country is just too much, and that is why we are struggling. As it has contributed hugely as to why we are struggling as a country, in the sense that if you look at all the commodities, if you look at the taxes on them, for example, energy is everything. Look at the taxes on energy alone. That is too much. Look at the VAT on commodities. So taxes contribute hugely to why we are struggling as a country now. And so if we are able to fight as a country to compel government to bring down taxes, it will definitely translate into an improving the living conditions that we are going through. And you see that a number of factories are also collapsing. Some are folding up, some are relocating because of huge or high taxes. Energy and taxes are what is killing our industry. So for me, I think that what has happened there is a lesson to the presidents that they can't always have their way. It is a lesson to Ghanaians that we must be fearless, and we must always be ready to come out and push. We don't push enough. That is why we don't get. If we push enough, they will listen to us. So because they feel we are always timid, we will be timid. That is why they continue to take advantage of us. So what is happening in Kenya is something that we all have to pay attention to, especially as Ghanaians, and take clue of that. And we stand to fight for some of these some of these taxes that are just put on us unnecessarily. And I think once we're able to do that, we can save our country from a lot of things.
Very well.
Thank you.
Mr. Philip London, apart from the taxes, also, I think I have about 6 or 7 key pointers which led to the protest. One of such is the passage of the finance bill, which obviously introduced some taxes or fees on essential items and services. Then unpopular with the public because they saw it as an additional burden to the already high cost of living in Kenya. And also President Ruto was criticized for being out of touch with ordinary people and for his aggressive stance on taxes. And then the fact that he also removed crucial fuel and maize flour subsidies, which many saw as betrayal. And then the most significant one was also the betting taxes that he had imposed. Similar to that of Ghana?
Well, anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Honorable. Good morning, Shinekwisi. And good morning to our viewers. The situation in Kenya has been unfolding up to now. And although it appears the main conversation at the moment is this finance bill, and the taxes that it was proposing. It appears as though that is the topic that we all over the world, people tend to be talking about or focusing on. The problem actually starts from way back when the kind of promises that now President Ruto gave when he was then vice president and candidate. You know, he raised expectations of many people as to, or the electorate, as to the kind of things he would do. Yes, they were already biting taxes. He promised that once he got there, he would do something about it. People were expecting a reversal, you know, and he at a point began to actually seem to distance himself from some of the things that the previous government, of which was a party, was doing. It was also clear that the then president, Ruto, wasn't the favorite candidate of the then president. So there was a lot of expectations from the people that he coming in would be a rejection of the, you know, status quo and bring in a change, only for them to see that it is just a worse situation than was there before. And the finance bill is just, as it were, the last straw, you know, because he's actually now beginning to concretize the opposite of everything that he had promised. Before this was, you know, his whole demeanor, the way he was going about things, was even worse than what his predecessor or the former president had been doing, you know. So the people had been very unhappy. The Kenyan media was always bringing up these issues, but he seemed totally indifferent. And he was demonstrating an excessive arrogance of power. And it looks like his trip to the United States and the reception he got from the White House actually boosted him so much. You know, so he felt like, I mean, you know, if Joe Biden has actually brought me to his office, I've sat in his chair, I've sat in the chair of the President of the United States, who are you, the Kenyan youth, to? So that arrogance of power, when he got back, there were complaints about his expenditure, you know, the kind of the planes he hired, etc. And even the way he responded to the people. You see, so all these things were a build-up. Then you introduce this finance bill. And he actually told the people that, just like some of our MPs said at the time of the introduction of the e-levy, thank you. It was like, Mupo, Mupo. What do you see? That was Ruto's attitude. But when this backlash came and they underestimated the youth. And you see, what is even significantly different from the Kenyan situation as against some of the others that we've seen. You know, in Nigeria, the leaders, when the youth were rebelling, they saw them as the hawkers, the street boys, etc. Similarly with certain protests that happened in Sierra Leone some time back. But in Kenya, it was the university students, sons of senior civil servants, politicians, and the youth across board. So it made a lot of people sit up and say, hey, this one is a natural reaction. But still, some of the politicians actually came out and condemned it. You know. So yes, this set the wrong footing. That arrogance of power that Ruto demonstrated is what has cost him. Yes. If you take the issues, like my brother said, some of the indices that the Kenyans are protesting about, ours are worse. Ours in Ghana, our situation in Ghana, is worse than what the Kenyans are fighting about. You see? And it looks like here in Ghana, we've come to accept it. It's like we've, you know, more or less almost embraced it. But it is wrong. You see, it is wrong. And it's getting to the point, and you know, people should not sit down and say, well, because it is my party, whichever party it is, and something is going on and it is wrong, you should just accept it. No, the situation in Kenya is demonstrating, showing that the people's will and the people's welfare is paramount. It is not what the leaders think. For too often the leaders, once they get into power, think that, oh, I'm in power, so to hell with you. I think this is a rude awakening, and it is for all leaders. It's a lesson for all leaders, both current and those looking to come into power, that you can't take the people's, you can't take the people for granted. You can't take the people for granted. Yeah, you're asking me about, the various indices that the taxes, etc. But for the Kenyan government, that wasn't even the issue. So far as they're concerned, they are doing what they want, irrespective of what the people think. And that, for me, was the crux of the matter. Because in Ghana, for example, our situations are worse. The taxes that were said to be removed, worse taxes have been brought in. Taxes are higher, So, for me, this is the fundamental lesson of the Kenyan situation that has to be appreciated by all, because it will actually even be an inspiration for many if leaders don't sit up and take notice of what's going on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt.
Well, first of all, I'm just still in shock. I'm wondering how leaders like William Ruto were inflicted upon the African people. Look at the standard of leadership. When we're engaged in a struggle for national liberation, Modibo Keita, Sekou Toure, Kwame Nkrumah, America Cabral, Jomo Kenyatta, and so on. Now look at the type of leaders we have. Rubbish! How did we inflict these kinds of leaders on us? And look, you cannot miss the irony. Here is William Ruto sending Kenyan police people to Haiti to maintain law and order, to restore a certain level of stability at the instigation of the United States of America. Look at his own country. How can this irony be lost on us? And I'm hearing all kinds of comments and so on. What happened? When he went to see Joe Biden, after the discussions and so on, Kenya was designated as a non-NATO ally of the US. What does that mean? Neo-colony, complete neo-colony of the United States of America. At a time when the African people, East, South, West, Central, and so on, are struggling against the establishment of US military bases across the continent, are struggling to enhance national sovereignty and so on, William Ruto goes to the US and agrees that his country is a non-NATO ally of the US. Unbelievable. Look, in 1963, when African leaders met in Addis Ababa, they sought to craft a united Africa, common currency, common foreign policy, common defense policy, and so on. What has happened to that? Is William Ruto working for that objective? Is he working for the objectives set out in the final resolution of the 1945 Manchester Conference of the Fifth Pan-African Congress? Puppet, clear Western puppet. And that's the problem. Today, William Ruto looks us in the face and says that, the people's voice is important and that we have to listen to the people because it's the mandate of the people that we presidents exercise and so on. When did he come to that realization? After killing more than 20 Kenyans killed down. More than 100 Kenyans have been injured, some have lost their limbs and so on. Somebody must pay for those crimes. Those crimes committed against the Kenyan people. We've gone beyond the issue of the finance bill. Under whose orders did 20 Kenyans die? Under whose orders did more than 100 people suffer various degrees of injuries and so on. That's where we are today. And I'm so happy that the Kenyan people have decided that the demonstration continues unabated. And today, they are massing up in the streets, ready to demand full accountability from their government. Now, Kwame, look, our leaders, one of our problems is that our leaders have stopped thinking completely. They don't think anymore. These measures which William Ruto was introducing are impositions from the International Monetary Fund. They went to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout. They tax your people, tax the bread, and so on, so that you can generate resources to pay so-called foreign creditors. That is the crux of the problem. Meanwhile, look around Africa. Take Ghana. We have gone to the IMF 17 times. Every time we go to the IMF and we implement the measures they prescribe for us, our situation gets worse. To the extent that today in Ghana, I mean, the madness is so obvious. Our leaders are celebrating debt forgiveness, partial debt forgiveness. That's what they are celebrating. Our leaders are celebrating inflation at about 30%. Our leaders are celebrating what they call the haircut. People who put their pension money and so on in the banks, in treasury bills and so on, are having to lose large portions of their money. That's what our leaders are celebrating. Incredible. I can't believe it. And what is happening there is not substantially different from what is happening in Ghana. It's not substantially different from what is happening in Nigeria. It's not substantially different from what is happening all over Africa. What happened to us? He's talking about putting teachers in classrooms and so on. Meanwhile, he was vice president under Uhuru Kenyatta for how many years? What happened to teachers in classrooms and so on? Now you turn around after killing 20 innocent people whose only crime is that they stood up for their rights and so on. They're telling us about the need to put teachers in classrooms and so on. When did he realize that? Unbelievable. You understand? Completely unbelievable. Look, the problem with Kenya, the problem with Ghana, and the problem with all other African countries is that the path, the economic path we have embarked on, can only lead to total disaster. Neoliberalism is not going to liberate us from poverty. Neoliberalism is not going to free resources for industrialization. This neoliberal craze can only push us deeper and deeper into the hole. And that is what African leaders ought to realize. And if they don't realize, we the citizens have a responsibility to kick them out of office and to bring into office new leaders who are properly focused on achieving the objectives of the national liberation movements, which were very clear. And the objectives of the national liberation movement were clear. One, the right of the African people to elect their own leaders and to choose their path. The ownership of African resources by Africans, and the exploitation of African resources for the benefit of the African people. And finally, the unification of Africa under the banner of scientific socialism. These were the objectives of the independence movement. And we need to go back to the basics, you know. Otherwise, we'll be beating about the bush. Now look around Africa. The patriotic African revolution has started. It is boiling in Mali, it is boiling in Burkina Faso, and it is boiling in Niger. And it is clear that this wind of change will continue to blow throughout the African continent until the African people realize their dreams, their aspirations, and so on. Is it any wonder that leaders like Ruto and Nana Akufo-Addo and others are ganging up against the patriotic revolution which is emerging in Africa? Leaders like Tinubu and so on are talking about mobilizing troops to go and topple the leadership of the patriotic revolutions and so on. And I wonder what gives them the nerve to even begin to think like that. I mean, ECOWAS sent a delegation of heads of states to Mali. You saw what happened to them. They booed them. They saw the hundreds of thousands of people who poured into the street in support of the patriotic revolutions and so on. And the other thing which I keep hearing, which makes me crazy, is that, oh, it is always better to have civilians in power than to have soldiers in power. Who told them that? Who told them that? Check the record. Check the Ghanaian record. As a matter of fact, if you take the Nkrumah government, which was completely outstanding, which did so much, established 400 industries as well, which government comes close to Nkrumah? It's a Champon government. Operation Feed Yourself and Industries. You know, the effort to expand electricity supply and so on. Look at the record of the Champon government. And then, as if as for soldiers, they are not human beings. Soldiers are citizens like all other Ghanaian citizens. They have a right to participate in the decision-making process. Okay? They, like all other citizens, have to contribute to make sure that this economy grows. They, like all other citizens, have to ensure that our access to social services like education, health, and so on is guaranteed, and so on. You understand? So don't let us talk as if as for soldiers, they are not human beings or they are not citizens and so on. They are. Perhaps what we ought to be talking about is that their participation should be guided by democratic principles and so on. But they are human beings like all of us, and they are entitled to participate in the processes and so on. I look, you know, around, and I get really shocked. Look, what the Kenyans are protesting against includes e-levy, doesn't it? Look at how we handled e-levy in Ghana. Don't you feel ashamed? It is not about the fact that we didn't take to the streets. That's not the issue. The useless matters which occurred in Parliament to no effect. Look at Parliament. Look at Parliament. You have a situation where majority of the majority comes to the conclusion that the finance minister is underperforming and he has to go home. All of the minority comes to the conclusion that the finance minister is not performing, he has to go home. And yet when there's a vote, the finance minister wins. What a joke. Oh, what do these politicians take us for? How is that possible when the majority of the majority has come to the conclusion that the finance minister is no good, he has to go home. And all of the minority has come to the conclusion that the finance minister should go home. And yet when they vote, the finance minister wins. What kind of circus is that? You know, so Kwame, I hope that we learn the important lessons from what is happening in Kenya. And there's one more thing. I've been listening to commentary on the Western media and also locally. And they all tell you that, oh, this is a youthful affair. It's the youth. Who told them that? Who conducted that census? Who conducted that census? How did they determine that this thing is inspired by the youth and it's the youth who are leading it? It's the whole united Kenyan people who are engaged in a struggle to improve their destiny. You understand? As if, as of this is youthful people, you know, some people go to the extent of saying that they have no experience and so on. And Ruto himself had the nerves to come and tell us that, as for the violence and so on, it's not by the demonstrators, for criminal infiltrators. Who are those criminal infiltrators? I should stop wasting our time with such useless analysis which has no basis at all. Why? If you take the population, the segmentation of the population of Kenya, more than 70% of the Kenyan people are young people. So if there's a manifestation in which young people appear to dominate, that's a reflection of the demographics of Kenya. You understand? Clear reflection of the demographics of Kenya. And we should stop peddling those stories. The people of Kenya are rejecting the neoliberal approach to national development. the people of Kenya are saying to themselves and the world that these IMF measures would not resolve the fundamental problems that confront them. You understand? And what are the IMF measures? 1982. We went to the IMF and the World Bank. What did they tell us? We should privatize state enterprises. We should devalue the national currency. We should redeploy labor, which simply means sack workers. You understand? Redeploy labor and so on. We implemented all those measures. Where did it take us? By 2000, money supply had gone up by 50%. Inflation was moving around 49% and so on, in spite of all these measures. Now, guess what? The country representative of the IMF and the World Bank, when President Kufuor was coming into office, quickly wrote a letter to him telling him about how the economy had been destroyed and so on. And Kufuor bought it. Eventually, they pushed him to HIPIC. What happened with HIPIC and so on. Then, interestingly, by 2009, when Atamios was coming into office, the same people who were running the economy under Kufuor, IMF and World Bank, wrote to Atamios telling him about how the Kufuor administration had destroyed the economy. We should stop listening to these jokers. The economists in the IMF and the World Bank, are they better than the economists we have in the University of Ghana? In the University of Professional Studies and so on? Are they better? We have people here, academics, economics, lawyers, and so on, who are better trained, better understand our situation than those jokers in the IMF and the World Bank. And it's about time that we began to listen to our own people. Indeed, it is clear from real practice that those professors in the universities and so on, they don't know about the Ghanaian economy. They don't know more about the Ghanaian economy better than the cocoa farmers in the villages. What do they do to write their thesis and so on? They go to the cocoa farmers and collect information. What they have, which perhaps the cocoa farmers do not have, is to put that information in a certain order. Certain order, which means the needs of academia and so on. They don't have anything more than the cocoa farmer. Why? Do they know the effect of petroleum price increases better than the taxi driver and the trotro driver? They should stop wasting our time. The time has come for the masses in Africa to take over their countries. The time has come for the mass of Africa to spearhead the patriotic revolution which is taking place in Africa. And Kenya is just one of the few. Kenya is just about to fall. You know, neo-colonialism is just about to fall in Kenya. And many African countries should be ready because the tide is blowing through the continent and the world. And there's no force we can stop this tide which is blowing across the world.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. You may also want to share your views with us here via our WhatsApp number, which will be projected in your screens very shortly, and also Facebook and YouTube. Right, so let's come to Ghana. There are some stories that we have here. Inflation expected to decline to 21.9% in June 2024 report. June 2024. This is a survey, I think, conducted by IC Africa. So let me just read a little bit of the story. Inflation is expected to decline to 21.9% year on year in June 2024 from 23.1% in May 2024, IC Africa has indicated. According to the firm, this would be slower than previously. Quote, we expect another disinflation in June 2024, but at a slower pace. Expectedly, the sequential inflation rate ticked higher by 114 basis points to 3.2% month on month in May 2024, with price pressures in both food and non-food items reflecting ongoing forex exchange pass-through higher energy price and transport fares, unquote. We expect this price pressure to pose an upside risk to headline inflation in June 2024, especially as petrol and diesel prices respectively surged by 17.3% and 18.5% year on year. Okay, Honorable, what is what are these percentages and all these things mean for the average Ghanaian?
I'm not an economist. We're talking about practical things that we experience on a daily basis. To be honest with you, it baffles my mind when His Excellency Dr. Bawumia is still putting himself out to be the to be the future president of the country. How did he come into being the vice president? He was selected as the vice president because of his economic background. The hope of his boss, His Excellency the President, was that coming on the back of an experienced economist, he was going to do magic to the economy. And indeed, he himself, at various political platforms, he butchered the then president and said all manner of things. How he was going to control inflation, how he was going to control the debt of the country, how he was going to transform life and livelihood of the country. And in fact, that hugely impacted on that particular campaign because he contributed hugely to the winning of the MPP in 2016 because of the series of lectures. To a large extent, he was able to convince Ghanaians. He was given the opportunity. To cut the long story short, where are we today? He is the vice president, the leader of the economic management committee or board or whatever they call it. But what is happening to our country? Everything has gone astray. We don't seem to know where we are in terms of the economy. Our debt to GDP, we can't talk about it. Our debt level has increased by over 300%. We are struggling as a country. Now, inflation, they say that inflation is declining. Even if you look at the current rate, which is around, they put around 26, it's so shameful that, in fact, about 3 of our neighboring countries, their inflation put together is still lower than Ghana. Yes, Burkina Faso, Togo, and then Cote d'Ivoire, the inflation put together is still below the inflation of Ghana. Is that not an insult? So the inflation issue, it appears the MPP government has lost control. The economic messiah, His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, heading the economic management team, they are not able to address the problem. And so for him, when I listen to him go around say that he is going to transform the economy, I see him as a laughingstock, just like many other Ghanaians. So our inflation is at a point where we all know that the country is battling with major struggle in terms of the economy. Now, I'm even worried as a rural MP. I'm looking at the inflation, how inflation is impacting on my people. When you go to the communities today, this is farming season. The farmers are plowing an acre at 200 Ghana cedi. This is what they were doing at 30 Ghana cedi in 2016. And I speak to you on a daily basis, the number of calls I get from my constituency requesting for support to help them farm. KWAME, it's uncountable. And I don't blame them because of the excruciating economic hardships that they're going through. Now, fertilizer, which they were buying at 80 Ghana cedi in 2016, today it is around 500 Ghana cedi a pack. Over 500% increase in inflation, fertilizer, price. Now, when you go to the communities, the unfortunate thing is that they are largely farmers. The cost of production today is so high that the farmers are struggling. Those who farmed rice last year, for example, if you look at, some of them still have a lot in stock. And the reason is that the cost, the selling price of rice compared to the cost of production, in fact, it's not a good story, because if they sell today, they will go into serious losses. Meanwhile, if you look at the prevailing market, the reason why they cannot compete is that other countries, fortunately, they are able to produce at a lower rate. And so when they come, they can sell at a lower prices compared to our people who are struggling, and they cannot sell at that prevailing price. They have to sell at a lower price. And when they do that, they are going to run into crisis. So, Kwame, this inflation, I heard the finance minister, when he was addressing Tea Party food soldiers in the UK, I think about 2 days ago. And it was the way he was pressing the government, just like Uncle Pra was saying. You've gone to IMF and you are struggling. You've gone to take away the money of pensioners. And instead of you to be so worried about this is something you're happy about. He was boasting that they have been able to successfully go through IMF, and the first tranche came. They have been able to go through the second, processes, and they've gone through the second tranche has come, and they'll go through this again. And this is something that they are happy to brag about. I think it is a sad day today as a country, and I'm sure Ghanaians are watching. Ghanaians, they are experiencing the difficult situations that we have, because once inflation, food inflation in particular, goes high, then it means that everything becomes a problem, because that is the basic needs of the people. Today, look at the price of the crude oil. Around 2016, it was less than 5 cedi. Today, it is around 16 cedi. So you see that the prices of items are hitting the ceiling under the watch of His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is putting himself out to be the president of this country. And I'm sure come December, Ghanaians will show that they are not, to put it in quote, they are not fools. Because somebody cannot put you through these difficulties, this excruciating hardship, and then you still think that you want to continue in that situation. I don't think that is something that is reasonable. And I believe strongly that we will have change of power come 2024 December by the grace of the Almighty, inshallah.
Right, for the purpose of education, and for those of us who do not understand economics and all of that, let me just read something that I have here so that it will guide us, especially our viewers, so all of us who are economists. So inflation in Ghana is currently at 23.1% as of May 2024. It refers to the rate at which prices of goods and services are rising. Let me quickly share with you some of the key points about inflation rates in Ghana. So we are looking at food inflation is around 22.6%. 22.6%. Non-food inflation is at 23.6%. The inflation rate is still above the central bank's target of about 6% to 10%. So that's just by way of information. Now, if we say food inflation and non-food inflation, we are looking at two categories that make up a country's overall inflation rate. So food inflation is the rate at which food prices are increasing. And food inflation includes the prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages in Ghana. Food and non-alcoholic beverages account for some 43% of the total weight of the consumer price index. So it has decreased from 26.8% to 22.6%. And then the non-food inflation refers to the rate at which prices of goods and services are increasing. So non-food inflation includes housing and utilities, 10% of total weight, transport 10% of total weight, clothing and footwear 8% of total weight, and other goods and services. Non-food inflation in Ghana increased to 23.6% from 23.5%. So that is what it is. Ideally, a country is supposed to have a food inflation hovering around 2 to 4%. This is according to IMF. And the World Bank 3 to 5%. Central banks typically aim for a food inflation rate between 2 to 3%. So that's just by way of education. Mr. Philip Lane, let me come to you.
Yes. You know, just following on from what's is sweeping around the continent. People are not interested in these figures anymore. Inflation has come down, like how reference is being made to my good friend, the current Minister for Finance, was saying in London a few days ago. People are not interested because this morning as we speak, there are people who are boarding trotro from one end of Accra to the other, one end of Kumasi to the other, one end of Tamale to the other, one end of many cities to the other. And they are feeling the difference in the prices of transportation. Today, across the country, people are lamenting bitterly on the price of tomatoes. So, if any finance minister goes and mentions any figures as to whether inflation has come down or not, so far as people are concerned, they are paying through their noses for some of these very essential issues. They don't care a damn what anybody says about inflation figures. This morning, what is the current conversation? A price of cement has hit 100 cedis. This is something that is... It is.
You just cement about...
It's 100.
It's more than 100.
It's more than 100.
I think it's 140. 104. 104.
Yeah, in Tamale we buy it around 110.
Yeah, it's 104 Ghana cedis. Yeah.
I mean, 100 cedis.
104. That's 4 cedis.
I mean, this morning, my son was telling me, lamenting bitterly, how he was struggling. He had to buy a bag of cement 100. I said, are you serious? He said, yes. Bitter. And you see, such a person, it doesn't care what the interest rate, what the anybody says the inflation rate. Yeah. He doesn't want to see a political party color this morning. He is woken up with a headache. You know, so these are the realities that, and you see, the level of awareness many years ago, when I'm sure my good brother here will tell you, when we were all younger, those were Yabe, so therefore you're voting Yabe. Solomon, so therefore everybody votes in Solomon. Nobody is interested in what anybody stands for. It got to a point it was on the party color. Oh, I wear these colors, this one wear these colors, that's what to vote for. Today, people want to know the issues. What do you represent? What are you going to do? You yourself saying this matter to me today.
What have you done?
Who are you? Can I trust what you're saying? Do I have confidence that what you have demonstrated in the past, I can be certain that, or I can be reasonably believe that you will do what you are saying you will do? This is where we have got to. That is the reality of the situation. So it's no longer a matter of, this party. No. We've gone past that. We've gone past that. You see, when the people of Kenya were voting for Ruto, They were not voting for a party per se. They were voting for this man because they thought this is the man who's going to do the job for us. And he has failed them. So now the people are saying, my friend, you have failed us. We want you to get out. This is where we are. Inflation. We are celebrating inflation having come down to 20-something percent. 20-something percent. Governments are being removed because inflation has gone up by two more percentage.
Yep.
We are celebrating mediocrity. And as my good brother said a little earlier on, we go and get debt forgiveness, and we are celebrating. Is this the same Ghana? The same Ghana? No. We have to sit up. We have to sit up. What is the person who is celebrating the debt forgiveness? What is his plan? What is his program? What is he telling me to convince me that he is going to take us out of this type of situation? What is your what do you bring to the table? This is the conversation that we should have. The other day, Alan launched his Great Transformation Plan. He has come out with his steps, his plan. And when you go through it, you see that this man has a plan. He has a program of how he can help this country get out of where we are. Very clearly, it's such a set of promises. Oh, I will do this. No. I'll bring down inflation. These are the steps I'm going to take. And he's put it out there. It's on his website. Go there and read it. Clearly demonstrated. This is what we're looking for. That is what I want to interrogate. I want to sit down with my friends with their experience and their knowledge, and we debate it. See how best, and let other people bring theirs. We debate it. That is how a country moves forward. Not by just coming to. We should feel like we should come and appreciate that we should feel ashamed. We should feel ashamed about some of the things that are going on, and we must reject it. We always said, oh, Togo, as for Togo, they are a poor country. Oh, we always said it. Go and compare yourself with Togo today and see where you stand. Look at their level of inflation. People are teachers in Togo. They work, they earn their salary, they are able to save. Which teacher in Ghana can save today? Tell me. The farmers in Togo, it's the same land. They are farming. At the end of the day, they are able to sell their produce and make some money. The farmer in Ghana cannot farm. He has to call his MP to assist him. Meanwhile, the same Ghana, we used to have agric mechanization. Various centers around the country where poor farmers will go and rent tractors, state tractors, to plow their land for them and pay reasonably. So when a presidential aspirant comes and he draws me a plan that brings back these type of facilities, I'll take that presidential candidate serious. And Alan has that in his Great Transformation Plan. You see? So it is not we must come to terms that it is wrong policies, bad management that has got us to where we are. We must get out of it because we've been there before. Yes, our champion was condemned, he was criticized, but he had his positives. We were exporting almost every agricultural produce. In the north, how many Ghanaians were producing cotton in the north? How many people know that today? We were producing cotton and feeding our textile factories in Ghana. We were producing our own garments in Ghana. I mean, we have sunk. We have to sit down and look at these situations. Another thing that Alan highlights in his transformation plan, even our own attitude to work and everything, we have to look at it again. We have to look at it. We have to see. Let us put the politics aside. Let us focus on Ghana. That look, we want our country. We don't want somebody to sit in Togo and use us as a bad example. We don't want somebody in Cote d'Ivoire or anywhere else to point to Ghana as, look at these people, as a bad example. I saw some social media posts the other day of some professor somewhere from, I think, America or UK or something, saying that Ghana is an example of bad governance, bad management, economic management. I mean, how? How can we, when our own country has been tops at various times in our recent history? So, it is very important that we come to terms with where we are. We no longer listen to jargons. We should look at people with track record, people who have demonstrated. Let's put political party aside and look for what is best in Ghana. And I will recommend that people, I will share with you the Great Transformation Plan. Read it and see the kind of steps that we need to take as a country to take us out of the problems that we are in. So that's my take on this.
Well, thank you very, very much. Good morning to you. I am General from Ashoman Estates, and I agree with Kwesi. IMF are jokers. IMF is the cause of our suffering, and because our leaders are also jokers, they are working together to sink the economy. Ghanaians are watching them with one eye. Thank you very much. Good morning to you. I am KWAME Randolph Duffy, watching from Freetown, Sierra Leone. From what I've been monitoring in elections, especially in the way Africans do not vote for the individual but the party they represent, and this is one of the many problems we are facing as Africans. Well, thank you very much. Good morning to you, KOD. Good morning to your panelists. This inflation figure is highly doubtful. We are not interested in this useless academic gymnastics, apart from the fact that it's too artificial to believe. What we are interested in is food prices coming down, petroleum prices coming down, exchange rates coming down. These are the true inflation that affects our lives. JS from Tamale sent in this one. This one is also saying the Ghana Beyond Aid is a complete and absolute mouth talk. Today we are celebrating 22 inflation. How mediocre. JM is an angel as the days go by. Senna Mensa sent in this one. Good morning to you, Pan-African Television. Kwame, I think the choice of Napo as... Okay, we are not discussing Napo, and to be honest with you, I'm not interested in discussing Napo this morning. We'll try. Good morning to you, Kwame. Is it because they get everything for free? How can inflation be decreasing when prices of everything are increasing? MPP everyday lives for everyday Ghanaian. Musa from Tamale sent in this one. Let me do two Facebook messages and I'll come to Mr. Pratt. Bernard K. Yeboah says, we must destroy the establishment before we can fix it again. By all means, arise, African youth. William Monday Jikunu says, good morning to KOD. Great panel. Patrick Kugbesika says, so why are they manipulating the inflation figures? It's extremely insulting. Augustine Newton says, good morning to you, KOD. Please tell Baumia that even if he chooses Jesus Christ as his running mate, he will lose. Dela Abdallah says, it is strange, though these people don't like Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, but they are busy destroying, looting, and sharing his legacies amongst themselves. Families and friends and cronies. Does it make sense? Anyway, some people make the world better for others to live in it, and we have others who destroy it. Fellow Ghanaians, say big no to Baumia. Tahiru, MPP, Baumia Kufuado, all they want is power to steal from the Ghanaian people. All right, thank you. Mr. Pratt, please.
You know, when you hear these figures, one of the questions that you should be asking immediately is how they are calculated. You understand? Because we all know that the calculation of inflation is largely dependent on what items are put in the so-called basket, which is used for calculating inflation. Okay. So you will find, for example, that under normal circumstances, you will not have cement, you will not have many other things in that basket. Now, if you change the things that go into the basket for calculating inflation, you get different figures. So how you calculate inflation is most important. That is number one. Now, I've had the fortune of talking to those who do these calculations and so on, the economists and so on. And it is clear that the rise of inflation, the figure, is not necessarily bad for the economy. It is not. Because you can use inflation as a means of stimulating growth in the economy. Deliberate. You can have a deliberate policy which envisages that inflation would rise, but the total effect of the rise in inflation will be to stimulate growth in the economy. Okay. Now, deflation is also not necessarily bad. So it depends on the context. So when our leaders keep telling us about the dropping rate of inflation and so on, what is the context within which inflation is dropping or rising? That's the important question. The figure by itself is meaningless unless you put it within a context. What is the context? And the context is not provided. Okay. Now, in secondary school, inflation is defined as the rate at which prices rise. Basic common definition. Secondary school definition. The rate at which prices rise. Now, if you're using the rate at which prices rise, what prices are we talking about? In 8 years, the price of kenke has risen from 50 pesos to 5 cedis. How does that affect inflation? In 8 years, the price of petroleum products has gone up by more than 100%. How does that affect the calculation of inflation? You understand? This morning, I'm reading a story in the Daily Guide, which talks about the Minister of Trade being very angry at the rate at which the price of cement products are rising. You understand? This is the Minister of Trade. How does that impact on inflation and so on? Now, I go to the market, you know, and 2-3 months ago, I went to the market, and one okra, not two, was selling for 10 cedis, one. Now, the rains have come, and I cannot tell what the price of okra is now. But the last time I attempted to buy okra and decided not to buy okra again, one was going for 10 cedis. Tomatoes, this size, one is going for 5 cedis. That is more expensive than the price of my first car in 1976. I bought my first car in 1976. And one tomato cost more than my first car. Can you believe it? So when we are talking about inflation coming down to 20-something% and so on, what does that really mean for the lives of the Ghanaian people? We used to say ordinary people, but now everybody. Kwame, I don't want to disclose your secret, so I wouldn't use you as an example. I won't use Kwame as an example because I'll be disclosing his secrets on air.
To the continent.
Yes. But my brother, I have friends who when they sit down and really mean business, they can eat 6 balls of kenke. 6 balls of kenke straight. The kenke alone, that's 30 cedis.
That doesn't include Kwame.
Well, I haven't mentioned Kwame's name. I've deliberately not mentioned Kwame's name. 6 balls of kenke, that's 30 cedis. And they eat it in the morning. So lunch hasn't come, dinner hasn't come, fish hasn't come, and now the kenke sellers are threatening to sell the pepper too.
Some of them have started.
So if you have a family of 6, what then happens? I mean, incredible. The recent statistical, what do they call them? You know, the Department of Statistics and so on, the survey they did, indicate that more than 7 million Ghanaians, out of a population of 32 million, suffer all dimensions of poverty, not one dimension, all dimensions of poverty. And then our leaders are telling us about a drop in inflation. What are we supposed to do with that drop in inflation? What madness is this? What are they celebrating? And so on. And they say that inflation is going to drop, so we should vote for them. Vote for what? How does the drop in inflation affect the price of kinky? How does the drop in inflation affect the price of petrol? How does the drop in inflation affect even the cost of education? We've been pummeled from left, right, and center about free senior high school. Go and ask the parents how much they are spending on the education of their children in the high schools today. In spite of the free senior high school, how much are children spending on their education today? Incredible amounts. You understand? So, look, I think the time has come for us to take ourselves serious. Because if we begin to take ourselves serious, these politicians will be compelled to also take us serious. Now, I don't think that they take us seriously at all. They are bandering these figures around, figures which mean absolutely nothing, figures which have no reflection in our lives, and so on. And they think they're doing something really wonderful. Who cares? Look, it was in the 2000 campaign that former President Kufuor came up with a simple formula. You understand? All kinds of figures were being bandied about and so on. And, you know, he said, look, I'm not an economist. What are all these figures which are being bandied around and so on? So he turned to the Ghanaian people and said, look, now forget all these figures. Inflation, per capita income, gross domestic product and so on. Just look at your life. Is your life better today or worse today? That should become the basis for the masses making decisions about who to vote for and who not to vote for. Not inflation figure, which doesn't mean anything, which doesn't affect the price of kenke, which doesn't affect the price of plantain. You understand? That is what we should be looking at. We are living in a country where we claim to have spent over 2 billion cedis on planting for food and jobs. What is the impact of that? Over 2 billion cedis we claim has been spent on planting for food and jobs. And a ball of tomato is 5 cedis. Incredible. So, Master, drop these figures.
Planting for food and job, is it phase 1 or phase 2? Oh, together.
Master, drop these meaningless figures which have no impact on our lives. And let's begin to talk about real life. You understand? Real life. What are we going to do? Now, we are in a situation where this country is completely bankrupt. And like my brother Philip, I went to the launching of the Great Transformation Program. Okay.
Great Transformational Plan.
Great Transformational Plan. I went to the launching. One of the things that I took away was a certain honesty about the state of the economy. Mr. Lanchemati admitted that, look, this country is broke. And therefore, any incoming administration which is thinking that it's going to use state resources to develop and so on, has missed the point, because there's nothing in the state coffers. You are spending 128% of total national revenue on debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. How can you build gutter? How can you build roads and so on? There's nothing in the coffers. There's a big hole in the coffers. And Kwame, our situation today is worse than when we went to HIPIC. You know what? At the time we were going for HIPIC, we were spending two-thirds of export revenue on debt servicing and debt repayment, 2/3. 2/3 of total export revenue is about 67%. So, today, not export revenue, total national revenue.
Total.
You need 128% of total national revenue for debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. Our situation today, I submit, is far worse than the time when we went for HIPIC. What is happening? And our leaders are celebrating so-called drop in inflation figures. They're even celebrating partial debt forgiveness. Partial debt forgiveness. Look, we have had HIPIC before. Where did it take us? So if our leaders today are celebrating partial debt forgiveness, it tells you that they have no clue whatsoever to how to get out of this economic quagmire.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Let me say a special good morning to those of you who are watching us on YouTube as well. You can share your views with us via WhatsApp or underneath the live stream. Comrade Kwame, good morning to you. I heard that $12 billion, which the country should have received from foreign remittances, cannot be accounted for. For how long will this thievery go on? Not too long ago, $52 billion from Commercial Bank to the Bank of Ghana could not be accounted for. The unaccounted for accounts have become one too many, and those involved must be fished out when Mahama wins. Kojo Sechi from Brekum sent in this one. This one says, good morning to you, Kwame. May I ask this simple question? Kwame, can we as ordinary citizens go to Agbogbloshie market and present this so-called 21.9% decline to the tomato seller, telling her the inflation has declined so that they should reduce their prices? It can be from who sent in this one. Free SHS is good, but the economy has made it counterproductive. In 2016, the cost a parent bore on one student in SHS boarding is far less than today. Most students took milk, Milo, sardine, etc. to school. Today, parents can't buy milk, Milo, sardine for their wards. Batoski from Hohoi. Okay, you've written copiously about Napo. Good morning to you and good morning to your panelists. This inflation figure is highly doubtful. We are not interested. Okay, I think I've read this one already. Good morning. I bought fertilizer at 470 Ghana cedis yesterday in Bolga. Let's be honest when we are discussing these issues. Thank you. Good morning to KOD. Things are just bad. The Honorable says plowing in the north is 200 Ghana cedis. Go to Volta region. It is 500 Ghana cedis for an acre. Why? I'm Hussein Zakaria from Agona Nyakrom. What is happening in Kenya should ring a bell to NDC and MPP because both both parties have rendered Ghana useless. Okay. This is quite lengthy. Good morning to you, KOD and Obu panelists. Watching you live from Lagos, Nigeria. KOD, Ben Epson MPP syndicated story deviously using Mahama as a distraction will not wash. Ben Epson is a dangerous political something. These news editors and reporters just keep planting false stories in foreign websites. Then they turn around to publish them back in Ghana. Go on. All right, thank you very much for sending your message from Nigeria. Hi, Pan African TV. I ask, what is the parameters for calculating, or what are the parameters for calculating the inflation in Ghana? Hey, this so-called political economic gymnastics inflation calculator, which does not depict the reality on the ground. Most of us are really suffering as Ghanaians. Ebenezer Techire. Good morning to you. I am Chris from Jessica, and I think Ghanaians should forget about NDC, MPP, and vote for a new change. They are killing us slowly. His Excellency John Paul says, good morning to you, and greetings to your panel. I recognize this as an international platform, and I want to use it to salute all the fearless lions and youth of Kenya. If politicians who beg their way into government no longer want to listen to us and instead choose to inflict pain and misery, they must be dealt with outside of democracy. The Kenyan president has proven he listens, even though he was pressured to do so. Affliction is even greater than that of Kenyans. We will soon follow in their footsteps to fight for our rights. Say no to a leader who derives joy from his people's misery. Sean, say to John Paul, sent this one in from Tamale. James Ababila says, from Winneba, says, good morning to you, Kwame, and to your panelists. Please, if a person can eat 6 balls of kinky at a sitting, Uncle Pratt should advise him to make a big maize farm for himself. Which one of Ghana the next?
Do you hear the advice?
Okay. Let's move on to the next topic. Chief Justice Honorable Gertrude Tokonu has been talking. She says we should uphold rule of law.
Her ladyship, not honorable.
Oh, okay. In some jurisdictions they say honorable. Okay, her ladyship, yeah, Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu says we should uphold rule of law. Maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Philip London.
Why? Because I said it.
No, because you support the agenda of the KKT.
Hey, now you're roping me into that matter. Ayo. No, but I mean, if the Chief Justice says that, she hasn't said anything strange. That is what is expected of any Chief Justice. To encourage everybody to respect the rule of law. So
before we proceed, let me just list the items here. It says, she says citizens' rights must be protected. Justice is delivered fairly and impartially. Judiciary remains independent and effective. The law is applied equally to all, regardless of status or position. Ghana's democracy continues to thrive.
Well, I think this advice Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, is giving us, I believe this advice is going to the citizenry, right? That same advice goes to her as well. She's the head of the judiciary. The judiciary must be seen to be independent, must be seen to uphold the rule of law, because in recent times, there have been situations where people have had serious doubts about some of these expectations from the judiciary. So, for me personally, I take it in good faith. It's something I expect of her, but she should remember that advice should go to she herself.
Thank you, Mr. Philip London. This one is from Bernard. It says, good morning, my boss. Today, I'm really enjoying the program. I can't even access my own money that I put in the bank. Let's come to you.
Thank you. Yeah. For me, her call is in the right direction, but she has a mountain task ahead of her, because the perception surrounding justice system in this country doesn't look good. Justice system is very fundamental and it's a pillar to democracy, because it is even an arm of one of the 3 arms of government. It is very, very crucial. And justices must remain impartial. They must not be seen to be political. They must uphold confidence. These are basic attributes that we expect to see with the justices or lawyers in this country. But that kind of respect that they hitherto held is eroding as a result of the kind of rulings that we have witnessed in recent times. A lot of people are not too happy. They are not happy about the operations of the justice system in this country. People see some of the way the cases are being handled to be political witch hunting. And the most recent one is what we are in the court dealing with. That has to do with our leader, minority leader. I was in the court. One of these, the sessions, I was in court. And there's this witness, very fearless Japa. I listened to him, the way he was questioned and the way he responded to the questions very confidently. And I must hail him seriously for he standing fearless and standing for justice. We, the minority, feel that our leader is not being fairly pursued. That is our perception. We are not saying that is the case. But what we see today, for example, he's going to court. And we have resolved that any time he's in court, we will not go to the chamber as a minority, because we are seriously dissatisfied about the way and manner in which the case is being pursued. So for me, I think that she has to do a lot of work, because she has come into this, the chair at the time there is a lot of wrong perception or mistrust about the justice system. And she must do all that she can to restore the reputation of justices. That is very, very important, because without justices in this country, I don't think that our democracy can survive.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Yeah. Good morning to you, Pan-Africans. Warm greetings to my able MP, Professor Hamza Adam. M.Y. Noah from Kumbungu sent in this one. This one is from Lloyd. He says, good morning to you, KOD. In fact, I picture Dr. Bawumia. The Achim Mafia people have succeeded in pushing the arrogant Napo on him as running me. Okay, we'll come to Napo. I think people are interested in this Napo matter. Anyway, Kwame, yesterday I went to buy roasted yam and was shocked that a slice of roasted yam sells at 5 Ghana cedis. In years past, it was the food for the very poor, but now it has become food for the rich. This one also says, till date, I don't understand why Dr. Bawumia doesn't want to associate the economy, do not want to be associated with the economy again. He now even prefers to be called Leader of Africa Digitalization. Congratulations to the youth of Kenya, from Kofi in Sunyane. Thank you, Kofi. This one is from Ebenezer. I think I've read this message already. This one says, good morning to you all. 3 tubers of yam is sold at 80 Ghana cedis at Nkwanta, Uti region. Timothy sent in this one. Mr. Pratt, may I come to you, please?
Well, I'm wondering who the Chief Justice, because it's the courts who are the final arbiter of all disputes, civil, criminal, and so on. So rule of law is not enforced by simple journalists like me sitting in Pan-African television. So the advice ought not to be given to us. Those who deserve to be advised are the people she herself works with at the levels of the judiciary. The advice ought to go to her. Her colleagues who sit on the Supreme Court, those who sit on the Court of Appeal and so on. That is where the advice ought to go, not us. Rule of law, what do I have to do with the rule of law? So that's your business. I mean, why tell us? You understand? And you see, I think that ultimately, eventually, what matters is justice for all. You understand? And there are many jurists, you know, prominent lawyers and so on over the years who have developed the philosophy of the law, the philosophy of the law. And I think all of them, or most of them, agree that in interpreting the law, we ought to be purposive. You understand? We ought to interpret the law in such a manner as to reflect the values of society. We ought to interpret the law in such a manner as would contribute to the smooth administration of society and to progress in society and so on. And that the law needs not be interpreted, you know, in a rigid and bending manner and so on. These are people who have studied the law. Me, I didn't, the little law I did was in the classrooms of the Ghana Institute of Journalism. And only as it applies to press, to my work and so on. Lord Denning and others, I mean, they've come up with erudite presentations on how to interpret the law. And I would want to believe that those who sit on the bench would apply themselves to these erudite definitions, you know, to the philosophy of the law and its implementation and so on. That is what will help us. You understand? And again, I think it's important for those who interpret the law to understand that they do so on our behalf, on behalf of the people of Ghana in their collective. So when they sit in the courts and they interpret the law and the rest of the population does not understand what they have done or disagrees with them, something is wrong. Look, criminal prosecutions are carried out on behalf of the people. It is the republic versus so and so. Ally? And what is the republic? All of us. Our sovereign power and so on. This is the republic. So if prosecutions are being carried out in our name, it ought to reflect our values as a society. If judgments are being given in our name, it ought to reflect our values as a society and so on. I'll make no more comments.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Good morning to you, Kwame. Thank you for your good work. God bless you and your panelists. I want to ask you, did Akufo-Addo not tell us he was coming to protect the public purse? Did he not tell us he was coming to fight corruption? Why are things going this way? MPP never again. This one is from Joe Kaneshi Mataiko. Well, thank you very much, Joe, for your message. Retsi Yaovi from Community 18. KOD, who are you trying to please, beneficent or who? Please read exactly what people write to expose the wrongs in the system. Yeah. Who is the Chief Justice advising when they are justices, when they justices are the ones not upholding it? We are cowards in this country. They should wait and see. All right, thank you. You didn't add your name. This is Mr. Afarijan of Bompata. Good morning. You see, what was bad and incompetent in John Mahamed's government is now put into the culture of silence. Where is Reverend Professor Mate, the one who called Nyasa for shouting here and there, seeking knowledgeable people to rule Ghana? Where is he? Is he a true man of God? Shame. Good morning to you, KOD, and your guest. As for His Excellency Akufo-Addo and his MPP government activists, it is better not to talk about them. If a hospital in Ghana can put up a hospital patient in an ambulance and she was left in the bush and subsequently dies after 10 days under Akufo-Addo and the MPP government, what can't they do in Ghana? Do Ghanaians have a president and government? Mohamed Abubakar Sadiq from Tamale. Ghanaian youth should put their political colors aside and learn from their counterparts in Kenya and fight for their rights. From Apeusika inside UCC. Good morning to you. Politicians often ensure that problems persist in the country as these issues provide them with opportunities to exploit for their selfish gains. By keeping the populace divided and distracted with ongoing crisis, they can manipulate public opinion, secure votes, and maintain power. This strategy allows them to promise solutions without delivering real change, perpetuating a cycle of dependency and control. Osei from Kumasi sent him this one. There's one last topic that we must discuss. I thought we would have rather dealt with the protest of a breakdown of radiotherapy machine affecting cancer patients. That's more. I think that's more sensible than the other one. So that's on the front page of the Inside newspaper. So if you are minded, kindly purchase a copy of the Inside newspaper this morning. It's on page 8. Cancer patients bear brunt of strike by Cath oncology doctors. Mr. Lande, let me start with you. Let me start with you on this one. I want to read a little bit of it so that at least we have an idea. Okay, so cancer patients seeking treatment at Okonfa Nochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi were left stranded on Tuesday as staff in the facility's oncology department went on strike. Dozens of patients, including children, were left waiting for medical attention as there were no doctors available to help them. The strike has caused worry and frustration for many patients and their families. Staff in the oncology department are protesting the breakdown of a critical critical radiotherapy machine, which they claim has hindered their ability to provide effective treatment to patients. In an interview with Otek News, reporter KWAME the patients who are allegedly vulnerable and in need of urgent medical attention called on the hospital management and government to swiftly address the concerns of the striking staff and ensure that the doctors return to work. Quote, "We are dying and we need help," unquote, said one patient who was in tears. Quote, "We appeal to government to come to our aid and resolve this issue quickly," unquote. The hospital management has appealed to the staff to return to work while efforts are made to address their concerns. Mr. London.
Well, it's a very worrying situation. Any patient dealing with something as difficult as cancer isn't having it easy even on the best of days. So when the doctors and the oncology department are on strike, it is terrible. Meanwhile, we also know that the doctors and these medical personnel would only resort to a strike as a very last, very last resort. They will have to be very pushed, and for them to have been pushed, I can imagine that machines break down. And if a machine breaks down, there's nothing anybody can do about it. But if these doctors are striking because a machine has broken down, it suggests to me that the situation could have been avoided. And that is what is motivating their strike action. So it is not a matter of the hospital authorities pleading with them to go to work. Oh, go to work and do what? Work with a machine that doesn't work. So the authorities must speed up and get that machine working. And this story is very distressing to me because a couple of weeks ago too, there was a strike of the lab technicians, which also was affecting many of these cancer patients because before they know the level of treatment they have to undertake, they have to go through these tests to advise the doctors as to what level of treatment they have to undergo. Some of them are going through chemo. These are very difficult treatment regimes. So when you hear some of these stories, it's very troubling. We must put proper emphasis and stop the politics. What is the point in saying you are building 111 hospitals when oncology machines are breaking down and you are not able to follow a maintenance process, a replacement process to have these things working? This is what we should identify. These are the things that we should do. Let us take the politics out. Konfanochi Hospital, recently, thanks to the First Lady, they've been able to complete a project. That project has been uncompleted for how many years? These are the things that are killing this country. Before any government starts any project, they should look at the old ones. It should be national policy. To hell with political colors. If a hospital has not been completed, whoever started it, whether they'll start, I found the funds, I did it, you commissioned it. Nonsense! Let us put these things aside and dwell on what is good for Ghanaians. After all, it's our money that is paying for these things. So I will pray that the authorities will do that, because appealing to the doctors to go to work is not going to solve the problem. The authorities must fix that machine quickly. And the ministry should come to the aid of the hospital to have that situation addressed quickly for the sake of the patients. So that is just my...
Well, that's a very brilliant one. Thank you very much. Honorable.
Thank you so much. I think it is a very sad news because you have situations where people are battling with terminal sicknesses because most of the cancers are patients are just people who are just going through maintenance of their life. It's very sad to hear that their doctors are on strike. But what we don't know is that if you are an expert, you have been trained to do something, and you don't have the equipment to work, or your equipment breaks down and you cannot go to work and you don't know what to use to work, it's so frustrating. And so for people to see that patients are dying, or for patients to complain that they are not being caring for them, it's better to go on strike so that everybody will follow. And then we all know that there's an issue, so that we all come together and address it. The minister, I believe, will take action on this matter, just like the alacrity at which he took, action on this locked medicines at the port. So it appears the only language we understand as a country is for people to pick it, then you respond. And I like the submission on the fact that we should try to pay attention to existing facilities. That is an intelligent one, because I think that why do we want to focus on political gains rather than looking at reality? And so recently the government has come out to say that they are establishing vaccine institute and all that. Now that thing is on hold. We don't know the fate of that at the moment. Meanwhile, we have very critical facilities that are there and need urgent action. So I think that the government must, especially the minister, must take an urgent action on this matter, so that our brothers and sisters who are devoid of politics, because they are non-political. Because if you go there, you have both political divide in there. And so if an immediate action is taken to look into the matter, I think that will be better for us.
Very well, thank you.
To save our image as a country.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of viewers on YouTube as well. Let me read some of the messages they've sent on YouTube. AK Andor simply says, what a disgrace. Elsie Sena says, please, can somebody ask Akufo-Addo and his government to release the IMF into the economy to stop this madness? AK Andor comes back and says, okay, right. So this one also is from Safuel Adai. Napo, his constituents are still waiting for Kufro market commissioning. Ashanti demand the record of the government, not tribal bigotry. Slump Boy says, greetings. I just love listening to Mr. Kwesi Pratt. Always royal. Kenyan nationalistic move was brave. Okay. And Elsie Sena says, please, can somebody ask Akufo-Addo and his government? Okay, I think I've read this one. All right, so these are some of the comments on from our viewers on YouTube as well. Mr. Pratt, please, on this subject matter, and then we wrap up.
Well, I agree with the comments which have been made by the two other panelists. What's the point in starting Agenda 111 when indeed most of the existing hospitals do not have the facilities to take care of people's ailments and so on. So I agree. But you see, the situation is grave. You have the 37 military hospitals. It's a military hospital. And a military hospital is seen as a hospital which would deal with serious emergencies, war situations, civil disobedience and so on. So it needs to be equipped. And one of the things that you need in a military hospital is a must. Without that, you don't have a functioning military hospital. It's a radiology department, the department that takes x-rays of bone fractures and so on. It's an MRI machine. Can you believe that in the 37 military hospital, this equipment broke down months ago? There's no functioning MRI machine in 37. The x-ray machines have broken down and so on. Nothing is being done about them. I've taken the trouble to speak to some of the people who matter and drawn their attention to the fact that even soldiers are getting very angry. Some of the soldiers are getting very angry. They go to hospital, 37 military hospital, with fractures and so on, and they are referred to the private facility. They can't pay. And so on. Up till today, the radiology department of the 37 military hospital does not have functioning machines. Unbelievable. So what you have just read about is perhaps, as they say, the tip of the iceberg, even though we don't have ice in Ghana and Africa. Oh, some parts of Africa have ice. That's the tip of the iceberg, as they say. Kwame, I noticed that there's a reluctance to discuss the Napo story. But there are very interesting aspects of the story. I mean, since sitting here in the morning, I've noticed some very interesting aspects. First of all, Napo is not the running mate to Bawumia. He's not the running mate to Bawumia as we sit here. What has happened is that the name has been presented to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, which is not part of the process for selecting a running mate, not part at all. We are told that later today or sometime this week, the name will be presented to the National Council of the NPP, which is the appropriate authority to accept or reject him. So he's not the running mate of Dr. Bawumia. There's still some way ahead of him and so on. But you see, unless, of course, we use the English language by heart, I'm reading some of the reports, and there are very alarming indicators in the reports. This is one of the newspapers which reported, listen very carefully. It says, our sources at the presidency clarified that President Akufo-Addo eventually accepted Dr. Bawumia's choice after sharing his thoughts. What does this mean? Eventually. If you're interpreting the English language properly, it means that from the beginning he had reservations. He didn't accept it. So he came to accept it eventually.
The same thing is captured in daily.
After sharing his thoughts. What thoughts? Because if he just agreed that Napo should become the running mate, he agreed. This one, he says that he eventually came to accept after sharing his thoughts. Wow! Unless the English language has not been used properly.
It's the same thing here.
I'm told that is the same in the graphic.
The president in that meeting offered advice and shared his thoughts about the flag bearer's choice.
So there are still dark clouds looming. But you see, there are some questions which are important. Why would anybody choose a running mate for such a crucial election who is heading a ministry in crisis? Why? The Ministry of Energy now is in crisis. On the 1st of May, the president assured us that DANSO was going to be a thing of the past, was going to be over and so on. We are at the end of June. 2 months later, we are still suffering DANSO. And what we are hearing is mind-boggling. I mean, one of the things I've heard, for example, is that we are still in DANSO because we went and bought the wrong specifications of fuel. Now, if that is true, why would you nominate the energy minister as your running mate? Something is wrong. It doesn't appear to make sense. Yes, sir. And as I always say, my brother, as I always say, unfortunately for me, and it's most unfortunate, everybody in the political terrain, or at least most, are my friends. Most. Apo is my very good friend. All of them. But when I come and sit here, friendship should not mean that much, should it? And the facts before us, the evidence, is pointing to things which are extremely worrying. First of all, that the president eventually came to accept. So what are the president's reservations? We need to know. If the president has reservations about the candidate, what are those reservations? And the thoughts he shared on the candidate, are we not entitled to know? What are the thoughts? In any case, the president has no locus when it comes to the selection of running mate. That locus resides in the National Council of the New Patriotic Party, and we are waiting to see what they will decide. Finito.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. My name is KWAME OWUSU, so thank you to the viewers for spending your morning with us here on the station, and thank you to those who were able to send in messages. I'm glad I was able to read as many as I could. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.